You ever get that feeling like when you hear a word or a phrase and it seems to be like everywhere all of a sudden, like you can't escape it?
Yeah.
That's high agency for me lately. I feel like it's on every podcast and in every article.
Oh, yeah.
So for today's deep dive, we are going to go beyond the hype.
Okay.
And we are going to try to dissect what this concept really means.
Sounds good.
And we're going to be using excerpts from an article. It's actually also called High Agency.
Got it.
So it's interesting, right? This whole idea of high agency. I mean, it feels very buzzy.
It's interesting how a term that was coined just a few years ago, back in 2016 by Eric Weinstein, has kind of gained all this traction.
I didn't realize it was that recent. I mean, what did he actually say?
Well, he described high agency individuals as approaching the world in this very specific way.
Okay.
Almost like MacGyverish, he called it.
Interesting. So like this constant figuring things out, making things happen,
always taking action.
Yeah.
Seeking opportunities, refusing to accept limitations.
Like that never take no for an answer kind of attitude?
Pretty much.
It feels like it's deeper than just being a go-getter, though.
I think so.
What is it about high agency that's different, do you think?
Well, it's tied to this cultural shift, I think, that we're seeing. This move away from what some people perceive as maybe more passive mindset, risk-averse.
Right.
And instead, it's about really celebrating these bold individuals who are like challenging the status quo, forging their own path.
And it's interesting because it's not just talk. It's like...
It's becoming action.
It's becoming action.
Yeah.
The article talks about how this software engineer, he's building this walkable utopia.
Oh, wow.
It's called Esmeralda, and it's specifically for, quote, creative, high-agency people, end quote.
It's a prime example
right.
of how this concept is starting to shape real-world communities and projects.
Yeah, and speaking of real-world examples, I mean, can we ignore the guy who has become...
I was going to say, we got to talk about...
With high-agency Elon Musk. I mean, he's
hard to...
a polarizing figure.
Avoid him.
You can't deny his impact.
Of course not.
Tesla, SpaceX, Neuralink, even buying Twitter. He's always pushing the boundaries.
He is constantly pushing those boundaries.
Right.
That relentless drive, always going for these audacious ventures.
Yeah.
That's a real hallmark of this high agency ideal.
Yeah.
He's not scared of the risks or the criticism. He just keeps going.
Trusts his gut.
Yeah.
Even when that gut leads him to do some things that, well, a lot of people thought were pretty unconventional.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, his Twitter acquisition, a lot of analysts thought it was a huge gamble.
It's huge risk, yeah.
But it ultimately put him in a position of, well, pretty significant influence,
Sure.
Which brings up this really interesting question. What is it about this whole idea of high agency that makes it so appealing?
Yeah, why are we so drawn to it?
Yeah, it feels like it taps into something really deeply ingrained in our culture, especially here in the U.S.
Yeah.
The whole pursuit of the American dream, the idea that you can be successful, that you can shape your own destiny.
Absolutely. High agency really resonates with those deeply held values and aspirations.
Yeah.
I mean, it kind of suggests that if you have enough drive and determination, you can really achieve these extraordinary things and really leave your mark.
But the article also doesn't shy away from the potential downsides.
Right.
There's this tweet from Mark Andreessen comparing high agency to hard drug use.
Interesting analogy.
Powerful, but potentially destructive.
Yeah, that's provocative.
Yeah.
It really raises this important question about the consequences of this relentless pursuit of agency.
Right. Like, is there a point where ambition and drive become detrimental?
Yeah. Where does it cross the line?
I mean, the article talks about Luigi Mangione.
Oh, right.
I mean, he seemed to embody a lot of these high agency traits, but ended up facing murder charges.
It makes you wonder, right?
God.
About the potential for ambition to kind of go unchecked.
Yeah, so we have this concept that's both alluring and potentially dangerous.
For sure.
So how does this actually play out in the everyday world?
Yeah.
Specifically, the workplace.
Well, that's where things get really interesting.
How so?
Because we're starting to see a shift in what employers value.
In what way?
Well, recruiters are increasingly looking for individuals who demonstrate high agency. They want people who are proactive, self-driven, they take ownership, and they deliver results, not just follow instructions.
So it's not enough to just show up and do your job anymore.
It's a different world out there.
You got to be a proactive problem solver.
You got to be pushing for improvement.
Always pushing.
Yeah, it's a real shift in mindset. Yeah, I mean, the article even shares this anecdote from recruiter Mike Basso.
Okay.
about this candidate who had 15 years of experience.
Wow.
And they got passed over for this head of sales position.
Really?
Because they lacked that high agency spark.
15 years of experience and it still wasn't enough.
It's really becoming like a must-have.
Yeah.
Especially in these really fast-paced competitive industries.
Right.
Employers, they want people who can think critically, take initiative, and find solutions.
Right. Not be constantly needing to be told what to do.
Without constant hand-holding. Exactly.
It's almost like high agency is becoming more than just like a desirable trait. It's turning into this...
It's a buzzword.
Buzzword.
Absolutely.
Right.
Something that companies are using to attract a certain kind of talent.
Yeah. And especially, I feel like in the tech world, in the startup world.
Oh, for sure. You see it everywhere in their branding and their advertising.
Yeah, it's like, be part of this exclusive club.
Yeah.
Be ambitious.
It conveys a sense of ambition,
Right.
of being part of this select group.
Yeah, like that walkable utopia we talked about.
Exactly.
Building a brand around high agency.
Precisely. And it's interesting how language has this power to shape our perceptions and our behavior.
Totally. But I think it's also interesting, going a little bit deeper here, that high agency seems to be connected to a specific way of thinking, like a cognitive style.
Like an actual mental framework?
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Research actually suggests that people with high agency tend to have this bias towards action.
Interesting.
They're more likely to take risks, experiment, and embrace uncertainty.
Rather than getting bogged down in overthinking and fear of failure.
Exactly. They don't get stuck in that analysis paralysis.
I mean, you think about someone like Elon Musk again, launching rockets, digging tunnels under LA.
Yeah.
Doesn't really seem like he spends a lot of time second-guessing himself.
He just goes for it.
He goes for it.
And this bias toward action, it's often coupled with a really strong internal locus of control.
So they see themselves as the drivers of their own destiny, not just passengers.
Exactly. That's the internal locus of control.
Right.
You believe that you have control over the events in your life.
Yeah.
And people with high agency, they tend to have a really strong belief that their actions directly influence outcomes.
So they don't feel like they're at the mercy of outside forces.
They're not just along for the ride,
Right.
they're in the driver's seat.
And that belief in their own agency must be so empowering.
Oh, absolutely.
It probably gives them the confidence to set these really ambitious goals.
Yeah, and persevere through challenging.
And see obstacles as opportunities, not roadblocks.
Exactly. But, it's important to remember
Yeah.
that there can be a downside to having too strong of an internal locus of control.
How so?
Well, if someone's sense of agency is like inflated or unrealistic,
Right.
it can lead them to blame themselves for setbacks that are truly outside of their control.
Right. So it's about finding a balance.
Absolutely.
So how do we cultivate high agency in a way that's healthy and constructive? Can these cognitive styles be learned or developed?
That's a great question, and it's something that researchers are still exploring.
Right.
But some studies are suggesting that practices like mindfulness
Okay.
and cognitive behavioral therapy can help people develop a more empowered mindset.
So even if you're not naturally wired as a go-getter,
Right.
you can train yourself to become more proactive and take more ownership of your life.
Exactly. It's kind of like the idea of learned optimism,
Right.
where you can train your brain to focus on the positive.
Right.
See those challenges as opportunities.
Yeah.
And really believe in your ability to overcome adversity.
It makes you think about why high agency is resonating so much right now.
Yeah.
It feels like we're living in a world that's more complex and uncertain than ever.
Constantly changing.
Rapid change and disruption happening all around us.
And in this environment, high agency is more valuable than ever.
Yeah.
The people who can adapt quickly, seize opportunities,
Yeah.
chart their own course, they're the ones who are going to thrive.
It's like that old saying, the only constant is change.
Exactly.
And in this case, the people who embrace that change, they navigate it well.
They come out on top.
They come out ahead.
And high agency gives us the framework for doing that.
Yeah.
It's about taking ownership, not waiting for someone else to hand it to you.
So it's not just a buzzword.
Right.
It's like a survival skill.
It's a necessity for the 21st century.
This has been so insightful, but I have to admit, I'm still thinking about the potential downsides. Like we talked about Luigi Mangione.
Yeah.
And this idea that unchecked ambition
Right, where's the line?
can lead to troubles.
Well, can lead to problems, yeah.
So how do we balance this drive for agency with ethical considerations and a sense of responsibility for our actions?
That is the million-dollar question, and it deserves a lot of consideration. I think the key is cultivating what we might call responsible agency.
What does that look like?
It's a type of agency that's tempered with wisdom, empathy, and understanding the consequences of our actions.
So it's not just about, like, going after your own goals relentlessly.
Right.
It's about doing it in a way that benefits you and the wider community.
It really is about understanding that we're part of a larger ecosystem.
Right.
And our choices affect other people.
It reminds me of that Dalai Lama quote.
Oh, yeah?
Our prime purpose in life is to help others. And if you can't help them, at least don't hurt them.
Right. Our well-being is connected to everyone else's.
Yeah.
It's not a zero-sum game.
So it's not about sacrificing our ambition.
No.
But finding ways to align it with the needs of the community around us.
Exactly. Seeking those win-win solutions.
Yeah.
Creating value for everybody, which requires creativity,
right,
collaboration,
yeah,
and a willingness to compromise.
It's inspiring, but how do we actually put this into action? Are there tools or techniques we can use to make responsible agency real in our lives?
I think one really powerful tool is mindfulness.
Okay.
Being present, being aware of your thoughts, feelings, and motivations. That can help you make more conscious choices.
Choices that are aligned with your values.
Exactly.
So it's about, like, slowing down, tuning in.
Paying attention to what's going on inside.
Before you react or make a decision.
Yes. Mindfulness creates space between the stimulus and your response.
Right.
So you can choose how you act.
Instead of just reacting automatically.
Instead of autopilot.
And in that space, we can ask ourselves those questions about the impact of our actions.
Exactly. It helps you become more intentional and thoughtful.
Right.
Which is really essential for responsible agency.
So we're basically taking the drive and ambition of high agency and combining it with the wisdom and compassion of mindfulness.
I really like that it's about integrating those qualities.
Yeah.
Creating a way of being in the world that's ambitious and compassionate, effective, and ethical.
This has been such a thought-provoking deep dive.
It really has.
We've unpacked high agency.
It's all those different layers.
Its potential, but also its pitfalls.
Yeah. And hopefully we've given you some valuable tools to help you navigate this complex world.
So as we start to wrap up here, I want to leave you with this final thought.
Right.
We've talked a lot about external achievements, pursuing success. But maybe the most important part of high agency is how it helps us become the best versions of ourselves.
I love that. It's about using our agency to create lives that are meaningful and fulfilling, to make a real difference in the world.
And to you, the listener, as you go on your own high agency journey, remember that true success isn't just what you achieve.
No.
It's who you become along the way.
Absolutely. And never forget that your greatest power is your ability to choose, to act, and create a future that reflects your values.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into high agency.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope it's made you curious.
And inspired you.
And inspired you to take ownership of your own journey. Until next time.